Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of FitzRupee Cast featuring DoW2 Retribution. Red-Rupee here, calling the shots for you as always. And I'm giving you one more cast before I head off to PAX East up in Boston. If any of you folks are planning to attend that, shoot me an email or something like that. Maybe we'll gather up. I know I'm meeting up with at least a couple other DoW2 fans out there, so that should be a good time. And in general, if you want to get a hold of me, leave some feedback, send replays, anything like that. I always put my email in the description and at the end of every video, so be sure if you're looking to get in contact with me, drop me an email. I'll try to respond as soon as I can. Anyways, we've got a great big 2-on-2 match here on Caldera's Refinery. On the blue side, we've got Mr. SteveBud, recently been casting once again and doing some streaming as well, as the big bad war boss, his teammate Giddolo as the Warp Spider Exarch. So we've got a nice little disparity between those two heroes. Then on the red team, we've got NoisyElmo as the Imperial Guard Lord General and Dark Riku as the Space Marine Apothecary. So we've got a rather fluffy humans versus Xenos kind of battle going on today on Caldera's Refinery. Of course, a very typical 2-on-2 match. So we've got a couple ranged heroes, a couple melee heroes on either side. Imperial Guard and Space Marine, I think, actually work out very well, especially the Apothecary. He can have kind of very strong, obviously very supported infantry force, along with the Imperial Guard, their vehicles, and, you know, just kind of long-range artillery nonsense. Really combines well, synergizes nicely with the kind of brute force of the Space Marines front line. So we'll have to see. I think we've actually kind of got a similar dichotomy between the War Boss and the Warp Spider. So I think it'll be a good matchup between these four talented players. And let's see how it's going. Typical build so far as we get rolling here. Everyone's capturing their intrinsic resource points and starting to put some pressure on the VPs. Red team goes for that central VP right away. Drops a turret back on Elmo's natural point there, so you've got to make sure there's no sneaky backcapping going on, at least in the early stages of the game. Little pressure going on between both sides as the Shooter Boys and the Sentinel start blasting away at each other. Space Marines engaging these kind of caught in a crossfire with the orcs in the middle here as the Eldar kind of dodge around and keep the Apothecary away from the main force, which all things considered, probably a good choice. Warboss will easily be able to scare off those tactical Marines for the time being and allow the blue team to go ahead and take the center VP back. Both teams look like they've dropped their primary power. Red team a little further behind in that. There they go. And the VPs are going to sit neutral for a while until someone can get at this center VP. So blue team pretty well concentrated on their right side, really trying to make sure that they can hold their power if a big push comes in. Since you have both the power nodes, both your primary power nodes on this map on one side, you really have to kind of focus on holding that in the early game. Here comes a nice engagement. Looks like those Guardians just upgraded with battle equipment with perfect timing. Unfortunately, they kind of dropped the grenade there. Didn't quite connect with anything. Knocks one tag, gets a little damage on the Warp Spider Exarch. Banshees show up. Riku knows it's time to get out of there, but the Warp Spider does snag a nice little kill there just in time before that Apothecary gets his heal. A bit late on that. Can't revive the dead. And NoisyElmo's going for his third squad as a heavy suppression squad. That's a pretty interesting build coming out. I guess he went straight for that quick turret and then going into an early weapons setup team. So normally we see either the extra Sentinel or the extra Guardsman squad, but NoisyElmo instead just going straight for the setup. Big shooters plowing into that Sentinel, and that's of course exactly what NoisyElmo wants. He just wants that Sentinel to take damage, draw fire, getting his setup team suppressed right here. Already has his grenade launcher on the Lord General, but nice flank by the Banshees coming in here. That setup team's in a lot of trouble. Sentinel's going to get in there just in time. Perfect timing with that stop upgrade. Slows down the Banshees, but has to get out of there as the big shooters are pouring tons of fire into everything. Hopefully, NoisyElmo went ahead and salvaged that turret because it's not going to be standing up. Yeah, it looks like he actually did react very quickly to that Banshee flank. Hit the salvage button. Of course, as soon as you see that your turret's in peril, you may as well salvage it, get some of that requisition back because it's about to go down. Dark Riku charging in. Orc Wog shooters and sluggers all engaging these assault space marines, but of course the apothecary is there, gonna make short work of those sluggers with that heal on the assault space marines, and he's already upgraded with the mastercrafted bolter, so we're gonna have 2 ranged heroes on the red team right there. Scouts in a lot of peril right now as 2 shooter squads are just blasting away at them. Even under green cover you can see they're taking lots of fire. Nice move though, moving those shooters, not keeping them stationary. A lot of folks would have just been content to blast away at those scouts, but of course we saw that SteveBud knew that those assault space marines were coming in for that jump. Gonna knock them all over the place. Attempted grenade, nice awareness there by Riku, microing on both ends of this battle. Although these tactical marines are gonna have to back up unless of course the apothecary shows up once again in a salubrious fashion, keeping those attacks nice and healthy. And Warp Spider needs to fall back. The red team successfully routed the blues pretty much completely off the map, but don't really have the necessary resources to do any sort of gen bash. They've got the apothecary and some assault space marines, but really not going to be able to put any major pressure on the power farm, which is unfortunate considering that the blue team is just now starting to come back out onto the field. Giddolo's heading into Tier 2, only has his 1 Howling Banshee squad out here. Never got himself another squad, which is fairly surprising. Catechin's on the field for NoisyElmo, and unfortunately for the apothecary, without that melee weapon, these Banshees are just going to shred him. Banshees can tear up the apothecary one way or another, really, but at least when he has his chainsword or something along those lines, he can kind of stall out a little bit in that melee brawl. So blue team's coming out here with a nice push. Storm Boys fall back, use that assault jump to get out of there. Probably a good choice, all things considered, but the big shooters are focusing down that apothecary. Gets the heal in just in the nick of time as the assault space marines jump in, and everything's coming to a head here in the center of the map. Giddolo needs to get back out here and support SteveBud. They're playing kind of separated right now, and it's not going to work out well at all with SteveBud getting hit on both sides by both of the red team. Dark Riku trying to keep those assault space marines in there, but with that bang bang hammer, those assaults are going to be taking tons of heavy damage. I'm sure he's going to get, oh no, but he goes for the stomp and actually cuts off the attack that probably would have taken out one of those models. Lots of range fire going into the Imperial Guard right now as the Banshees and Guardians, I'm not even sure, there's the Banshees, I was about to say, I lost track of the Banshees. Guardians way back behind the enemy lines, trying to get some capping, and VPs are about even at 400 for both players, but the blue team's got the advantage in tech. They're bringing out a Falcon almost immediately here, and that's going to be bad news for the Reds as Dark Riku's just now going Tier 2. NoisyElmo hasn't even hit the tech yet, doesn't have the resources for it either. Catechins, grenades, all kinds of heavy range fire over on this side of the map coming from both sides. Guardians trying to get into position right here. Grenade going down on those Catechins. They just stand there for it, walk right on top of it, and oh my goodness, the entire squad goes down. That's a huge loss for NoisyElmo. Now going into Tier 2, he's not even going to be able to replace anything right yet. Warp Spider upgraded with his advanced targeters, so going to be increasing his ranged output for the time being. But wow, that was a perfect grenade. That's the best grenade I've seen in a long time to completely give that entire Catechin squad. That's brutal. It's particularly hard to do that at times too, considering they have vulnerable leaders that have to die last. So that was really well placed, and unfortunately for Elmo, he kind of walked right on top of it. Melta going down on that Falcon though. Assault Marines greatly outmatched pretty much the entirety of both blue team over here on this side. Banshees look like they might not even manage to get a model off there. They do pick off one and can continue harassing that Lord General as he doesn't have any sort of knockback to deal with that for the time being. I'm not sure where that heavy weapons team is. There it is over here getting harassed by Storm Boys. I was about to say it may be lost and forgotten if he's not careful with Banshees flanking. And it looks like the Sentinel is going to go down. NoisyElmo heading into Tier 2 finally. Giddolo has a squad of Wraithguard on the field, which probably a pretty good choice all things considered. The only thing that's really going to give them any hassle are these Assault Space Marines, and with the Banshees hanging around, lying in support, that's not going to be something they want to tangle with. So here comes a nice Gen Bash. Red Team really can't do too much right now. Apothecary's moving into support, but they're going to lose at least a couple of those generators until those Assault Marines get in position to deal some real damage along with the Lord General and his forces. Stormbore's fully upgraded, gonna start taking some fires. They finish the cap 364 to 368, but a triple cap coming up for the blue team as NoisyElmo brings the Chimera onto the field. A counter jump coming in from the Storm Boys, trapping those Assault Space Marines. That's not a good position for them to be in. They're going to be ripped up without much issue. A nice looking Merciless Strike though shredded those Storm Boys, and now they're going to have to fall back. I'm misjudged, going to have to recant that previous analysis because those Assault Squads, combined with all that massive range fire from the Space Marine and Imperial Guard armies, managed to completely wipe out that Orc melee force. VPs are rapidly ticking down for the red team as this triple cap persists. Assault Space Marines trying to put some pressure on those Wraith Guard. The Falcon needs to start maneuvering back because the combination of the rocket launcher and that melta bomb is going to put a lot of pressure on that Falcon. Last cannon back there as well. It's about to go down with another rocket. It does. Apothecary in a lot of trouble. He may go down, but that's a big win for the red team after taking out that Falcon. That Chimera is going to be a constant source of trouble though. Assault Space Marines and the tanks are still on the field. Banshees have to fall back after taking a lot of damage. Space Marine Knows No Fear was activated, which allowed those tanks to tank a little bit along with the help of that Chimera. They weren't going to go down without a fight. Big grenade, another nice grenade coming in on those Assault Space Marines. A little late, manages to tag a single model as the Lord General goes ahead and picks up the Apothecary. Warp Spider kind of hanging out back there, but didn't do too much. Was upgraded, if you saw there briefly, with the Entangling Web upgrade, which will help deal with those Assault Space Marines.
Zog, he's losing a victory point.
But it's still anybody's game. Both armies still pretty reasonable in composition. Shields going up right now, but it looks like the Lord General's just going to choose to move in and melee those Guardians. I'm not sure, do they have, they do not. They have both of their upgrades. So, and actually getting a nice knockback on the Lord General there. Took out one of his retinue members. Red team taking back most of the map. Up top we've got Storm Boys trying to deal with those Catachin Devils, which were repurchased by NoisyElmo, who doesn't want to go this game without them. When you're dealing with this kind of Orc melee, you really need to have those Catachins on the field to help you have some knockback, especially with Storm Boys. And now that that setup team has been upgraded to the Las Cannon, he has no suppression, no melee control. So the Catachins are a very good purchase. Giddolo and SteveBud now both tier 3. Riku's heading into tier 3 as well. But Giddolo already has a D-cannon coming out onto the field. So that could really help them lock down. They do have the VP advantage. So long as they can try to grab that center VP, that D-cannon is going to be a huge boon to their side. There is, however, a Plasma Devastator on the field as well. And it's being supported by both of those heavy Space Marine squads, so the Orcs and Eldar can't really move in on it by themselves yet. Banshees need to repurchase their Exarch. Scouts trying to do a little sneaky capping, but the Dire Avengers weren't going to allow it. Banshees kind of need to just go up and flank this Plasma Dev. It's kind of out there without support, but just as I say that, the entirety of the red team is moving in. Looks like we're going to have a nice concentrated push here on the center of the map. Chimera's front and center. There's really still not much anti-vehicle on the field. Banshees jumped the gun big time, went way in there. Nice grenade on those tactical Marines, though. Took out 3 models. One is surviving. Apothecary didn't even want to keep him around, even though they could reinforce, but it's not going to matter because nothing can break this Chimera and this impending Garden and push. Wraith Guards haven't been able to get off too many shots here, but there is a looted tank coming onto the field here. Warboss, along with that tank, should be able to deal some pretty serious damage to these Assault Space Marines, but they're taking out that Warboss a lot quicker than I expected. Storm Boys jumping on that Plasma Dev, forcing them off. It looks like, was that a Shoot-A Squad that went down? Yes, it was, for Mr. SteveBud. But that looted tank is kind of unopposed for the time being. Bomba Boy goes off, but completely misses. Manages to do a little bit of knockdown and minor damage, but didn't do too much there, all things considered. There goes a nice boost coming down there on the las cannon. You can see the Lord General used his Melt-A-Gun upgrade. I forget what it is, the Fight Harder ability, which lowers weapons cooldown, allows that las cannon to fire a bit more quickly. So that could be a major threat to that looted tank. Really, the red team, or sorry, the blue team, this is one of those maps where they are in fact switched. Blue team really needs something to deal with that Chimera. It'll help out a lot. But they do have plenty of time to get back out on the field here. They've got over a 100 VP advantage. But the red team is catching up. Riku now getting himself a Predator, it looks like. And Giddolo, SteveBud still sitting on their tier 3 purchases they've made thus far. D-Cannon continuing pouring some shots into that center part of the map there. A lot of support there from Giddolo. He really doesn't have a solid frontline force though. All he's got are these Banshees and this dire Avenger squad. So he's going to need something else out here on the front line, I feel like. Honestly, I think maybe a Seer Council would be really prime right now. There's enough to deal with kind of the current melee threat of the Banshees on their own, but if you brought out a Seer Council along with that, along with the War Boss out here, I think they would really just be able to shatter this kind of ranged front that the red team has set up. But we'll see how this plays out. War Spider getting knocked back once again by that Plasma Devastator. D-Cannon moved up pretty far. Singularity going down on the Plasma Cannon. It is noticed by Dark Riku. He retreats it in time. Banshees again up there by themselves without any support, and I think Giddolo is just being a bit too aggressive with them. He needs to wait for SteveBud to get back out here. If he pushed in those Banshees at the same timing, along with those Sluggas and Storm Boys, I think that would be a force that the red team really just couldn't contend with. Right now, another Melta going down on that looted tank. That might be it for the looted tank if it's not careful. Taking heavy damage, but it looks like the Tax and the Lasgun are too far back to do anything about it. It needs to keep falling back. The Tax are moving in. They are undeterred in their attempt to take out that tank, and they get the final shot off to finish it off. Another excellent play there by the red team. 2 great engagements in a row. They're really going to be able to even out this VP differential shortly. Nice grenade going down. Excellent use of Wraithbone, by the way. Don't see that used very often. He just used Wraithbone, sat there and tanked the damage while everything moved into melee. Of course, the Apothecary is just going to come right back up, but he got an attack kill out of it as well. Pretty slick maneuver. I don't see Wraithbone used hardly ever on those Wraith guards. Chimera slowly taking damage from those Shooter Boys. Storm Boys getting into melee right there, activating both Hard Boys and use your Sluggas. Use your Choppas, rather. All those Orky words, they all sound the same. Triple cap for the red team right now, and this Chimera is still up. This Chimera just really needs to go down for the blue team to really make an effective push here. They might finally be able to do it. These Storm Boys getting perilously low, though, as they're getting kited around by all these various ranged squads. Warboss kind of just taking some big damage while he tries to cap. Storm Boys took a huge Plasma Dev shot. Finally, that Chimera goes down. Not even sure what to. It must have been that D-Cannon getting a long-range shot. It looks like it died right on the edge of that arc. So just barely getting that sweet, perfect shot there on the edge of everything. Lord General taking lots of fire, but he will be able to get that Apothecary back up before he goes down. And it looks like they're both going to have to retreat. Or actually, no. Looks like Lord General just soft pedals out of there. Apothecary will be able to heal him up shortly. Apothecary with a pretty standard build. You see the Army of Purity and the improved metal equipment, which really just increases his heal and allows him to do it more often. So really allows him to keep these Assault Space Marines on the field without much issue. D-Cannon's trying to get some shots into those Imperial Guard, but unfortunately with these Assault Space Marines bearing down on them hard and no Banshees there to support them until just now, he had to pull back that D-Cannon too. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. I guess Giddolo's saving up for an avatar at this point. He could purchase it really about whenever he's ready. Nice looking Merciless Strike, but oh, then some friendly fire from the Plasma Dev. Knobs moving in along with Sluggas. Banshees in there on the Assault Space Marines. Assaults jump out of there, and everything's moving in on the red team's position right now. Got a huge push coming in. Plasma Dev's trying to get into position to deal with those Sluggas and the Orc melee, but unfortunately it's just not going to be quick enough. It is going to get out of there, but that triple cap for the red team, even these VPs right on out, and managed to take out a few key points on the blue team's army. Managing to take out that looted tank was a huge plus. It allowed that Chimera to stay on the field much longer than it otherwise would have, just standing on the front line, reinforcing wherever it can. Catachin's trying to keep Knobs off the power, and NoisyElmo's bringing himself a Leman Russ tank onto the field. along with Giddolo's fire prism, so we'll have a few more pieces of armor. Dark Riku obviously canceled his Predator and went for a Land Raider instead, so once that Chimera went down, I think he chose to instead get his own reinforcement, have a nice big Land Raider on the front lines to help keep that map presence that they've been doing such a good job of so far. Scouts stealthily taking that center VP. Looks like we've got a bunker coming down on the center point as well. I'd be willing to put money that that's going to become a repair gun bunker here later with all these vehicles coming out on the field. A second Leman Russ too, and that's a huge push here that's going to be coming in for the Reds. You'll often see that play when you're fighting Lord General. You'll see one Leman Russ get purchased back at the base, and then as soon as that hits the field, they'll drop a second. And a surprise 2-tank push can really throw the enemy off of their game. It's an extremely useful ability to just instantly be able to call that tank onto the field. Land Raider's moving in, but I'm not quite sure why. It's moving in without any support right now. Really, there's no reason Riku and Elmo shouldn't be pushing in right now along with that Land Raider. You can see it's actually taking tons of damage, already down to half HP from the Fire Prism, the D-Cannon, and now the Orc Army moving in for the kill as well. 2 tanks back there in the rear. Gonna put a huge damper on this Knob Warboss push, however, though. And now Assault Space Marines coming in once again. Frenzy activated. Looks like the Lord General goes down to the majority of the Eldar forces, and here comes the Eldritch Storm right on top of the Land Raider. Land Raider's gonna be trapped in between a rock and a hard place, and it's gonna have to get obliterated, as it was either a choice of go down to Eldritch Storm or go down to a pair of Fire Prisms and D-Cannons. Big Orbital Strike coming down right on top of those Wraith Guards and D-Cannon. Nice placement, managed to get both of them spot on. Dropped one in the retreat path as well. And it looks like both squads may in fact survive, however. Except, oh man, the Warp Spider got blasted right into the middle of the final beam. These 2 Fire Prisms are going to have to be very cautious around these 2 Leman Russ tanks. These Leman Russ tanks have enough HP and resistance armor to really just charge against these Fire Prisms if they so choose, and really just force them off the map and maybe even destroy them. They need to try to take out that Imperial Guard bunker if they can. I think with these 2 tanks out, the blue team probably needs to get themselves maybe one more source of AB, get themselves a Beamy Death Gun or a Bright Lance Cannon perhaps. I still honestly think that maybe a Seer Council would have been great for Giddolo, but going for a 3rd Fire Prism, honestly an Avatar would be really effective too, but I think now that there's at least 2 tanks on the field, gonna be a 3rd, that's probably not the greatest choice. I think the blue team really had a chance to do some damage with these 2 Fire Prisms, but they need to obliterate these tanks, which is going to be extremely difficult to do with the Imperial Guard repair bunker back here. Singularity going down on the center point, but it's not really going to connect with anything. Warp Spider teleports in, I'm not sure why. Maybe just trying to get a little vision. And actually, he stops right there. Why did he stop? Oh, man. Huge loss. Giddolo does not need to be losing squads right here. NoisyElmo and Riku actually don't have too much, but they're evening this out right now. Assault Marines jump in on that Fire Prism. Along with the tax, it's going to be a dead Fire Prism. Perfect assassination of that tank. Secondary Fire Prism now moving in. Rocks going down on the bunker and the Imperial Guardsmen. It looks like all it's going to do, though, really, is hit that bunker. A bit expensive for a bunker kill. Slug is taking tons of fire. Hopefully they're being paid attention to, or they're going to go down. Warboss and Knobs just barely not connecting with that Leman Russ, but luckily the Storm Boys, they're able to finish it off. Kadich and Devils are going to get out of there, but it's going to allow the blue team to take back the map for the time being. Tax, however, are going to start taking that natural VP on that side. Fire Prisms need to change their focus beams. They can probably focus down that Predator if they push the advantage right here, but it looks like they're going to let it escape. I know you have to be very careful with these Fire Prisms, but I think that was an opportune time to strike at that Fire Prism. Or sorry, strike at the Predator. VPs are still eating it up even at this point in the game. I honestly think that the blue team has the army advantage, especially now that one of those Leman Russ tanks is down 135 to 145, but it's soon going to be a 2-0 cap for the Blues. Looks like the red team is about to get their natural VP back, however, and SteveBud bringing on a tank of his own.
You know the thing.
So Warp Spider still doesn't have any armor. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like the phase shift armor at this late point in the game. Giddolo has lots of resource. It'll be interesting to see which his next tier 3 purchase is. SteveBud doesn't really have too much to bring something out, bringing another D-cannon onto the field, so he's just going full-on artillery. He's really going to have to land some singularities to deal with that, though. Unfortunately, right now, he still has nothing to deal with, I feel like, the Assault Space Marines. They've been a constant nuisance to his whole army right now, and of course that's kind of because he doesn't have anything other than the Banshees to fight them, and with the Apothecary support, those Banshees are going to lose to the Assault Squad every time. So it looks like we're going to have another push coming in on the center, along with some Terminators pushing in on the backside. They're going to teleport right into the tank, though. Fire Prisms realizing they're in trouble, falling back, and another Leman Russ tank now here to put some pressure on the Fire Prism, but it's dropped right in front of a squad of knobs. D-Cannon's not set up. Forward D-Cannon is getting pushed back anyways, and Wraith Guard are not really going to be able to do too much either. Lots of knockdown going off all over the place. That Leman Russ that was just called in got obliterated by the knobs. Warboss just barely escapes, and knobs are going to start pounding away at the Terminators. Tanks all over the place, but one of the Fire Prisms went down. The next one's about to if it's not careful. Knobs kind of getting kited around. They need to be very careful in the middle of all of this crazy range damage. Lazpred's going to start focusing down that looted tank. It needs to get out of there. Knobs need to do the same. There's just way too much Red Force still on the field right now, even with the Fire Prism trying to launch some supporting fire in there. Storm Boys and Banshees now assaulting the majority of the red team on themselves. They're actually managing to do some pretty severe damage. But the Banshees get knocked back just as the final Assault Space Marine gets out of there. Terminator's also very low. But even with our boys on the Storm Boys, they're not going to be able to get that squad kill. One lone Terminator, very low health, going to be able to escape. And 130 to 73 is the current score. Lord General managing to get a decap. The red team making sure they get every cap they possibly can. They're extremely low on VPs. And the Warp Spider doesn't have too much to deal with this. The Entangling Web has, I feel like, I haven't seen used too effectively thus far. I honestly feel like maybe the Heavy Gauge Filament would have been a better choice to help deal with that Apothecary and keep him off the field. Riku's, of course, plays the Apothecary as his main hero, so especially with this Mastercrafted Bolter, you're not going to see him on the front line very often. I'm not sure what these Shooter Boys are planning, maybe going for a sneaky cap right there, but took a lot of fire just trying to attempt that. And again, we're seeing these two tanks just kind of owning the center of the field. The red team just didn't have anything to deal with that. Giddolo had his two D-cannons, but they were set, I think, a bit too far up. And the second one came in and got knocked down before it even got set up. Warboss kind of getting kited around right now, trying to cause trouble wherever he can. Keep the red team away from seeing these knobs capping the point as these Assault Space Marines take tons of artillery fire from the Wraith Guard and the D-cannon. On this side of the map, we've got Shooter Boys and Storm Boys. Shooter Boys go down. That's unfortunate for SteveBud. But those Storm Boys gonna move in on the Guardsmen and try to put some pressure, maybe finally take out that second Leman Russ tank. 56 to 121, and the red team really needs to move out here. They've been doing a great job of holding so far, but the Storm Boys now putting some pressure on. Oh, they let the tank get away, and they're not going to escape themselves. So that's a big loss for SteveBud. SteveBud now down to just a lone squad of knobs. A bit overzealous and pushing in there with just those two squads. He was trying to really put pressure on two fronts at once, but the majority of what's left of the red army was over there and able to really thwart that Storm Boy push. Two D-cannons gonna get blasted away here by a rocket run, taken out and nailing those Banshees as well. That might just be exactly the timing that the red team needed to try to get this map back into their favor. Terminators managed to get a decap on the point. It's a 1-0 cap for the red team right now. Knobs kind of at half health, moving into engage, but the Terminators smartly teleport away and just draw the knobs into a pile of range fire. SteveBud's bringing himself another looted tank onto the field. Warboss kind of trying to do his best to get in on this army, but It's just way too much range fire for him to deal with. 86 to 33. And it looks like the red team may just be able to hold this center point. SteveBud and Giddolo have lost really all of their vehicles. That one looted tank is just not going to hold up here in the center. There's too much AV. Those assault marines could drop a melta bomb, and that would be all she wrote for that looted tank. Another bunker getting secured here in the center of the map. And it's going to be nigh on impossible for the blue team to push in here. These D-cannons are great when you have map control, but at this point they're not really going to be able to do anything. They go down to the tactical marines, which activated Space Marine knows no fear. Assault marines jumping in on the Wraith Guard, and man, the blue team is just getting dissected here as the red team pushes forward more and more. An Eldritch Storm going down on the center VP. Everyone reacts fairly quickly and manages to save most of the army there. Tax took a couple hits, but a well-timed heal manages to keep most of them up. Altar going down as well. Blue team doing everything they can to keep those VPs out of the red team's hand. Right now, Knobs are trying to cap on this side of the map, but the Catachans will probably be able to take them out relatively easily. Even with Frenzy, they can just all reliable to keep them off the point. Tax get the decap, and that's going to be the game. The last few VPs ticking away. Singularity was activated. The Tax just moved back. Even getting pulled through that Singularity. Level 4 Tax just don't even mind. Wow, 33-0 is the final score. Nice comeback there from the red team. Really putting those tanks to good use. The blue team just wasn't able to break too many of those. I think Giddolo went kind of all in on that artillery, and he really needed some sort of stable front line to deal with the pushes that Riku was able to dish out. All he had to do really was jump the Assault Space Marines in with the Apothecary, and there was not much he could do. With 3 Fire Prisms and 2 D-Cannons brought in Tier 3, I have to wonder if maybe he should have gone for an Avatar, should have gone for a Seer Council, something like that, like I mentioned earlier, and made a concentrated push. Again, I feel like this was kind of an issue where Elmo and Riku were playing together very well, and SteveBud and Giddolo were kind of making individual pushes and oftentimes not really on the field at the same time. And I think if they had maybe done that, even in one more engagement, with 33 VPs being the only determining factor, if they had made one concentrated push somewhere in the mid-game and gotten the blue team off of there, that might have been the win for them. But anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the game. I know I did. This is Red-Rupee. Feel free to comment, subscribe, like the video, all that fun stuff. I always appreciate it, and I will catch you guys next time.